what makes different like pedestrian fans don't.
So I'll call you right back.
I know, right?
Welcome to today's Chat and Chill, the exclusive. We are so happy to be with you guys. It's been a long year, right? Things are finally starting to get back to normal. We're ushering in this new season of Chat and Chill with a talk that I think is on a lot of people's minds as we all start heading back. For those that worship in the Christian tradition, for those of us who are heading back to in church worship, in sanctuary teaching, it's bringing back some of the conversations about old habits and things that we're used to doing that maybe we should or shouldn't be doing, to make sure that everybody feels welcome, that everybody is being taught uncompromisingly, and that people are able to bring folks in the building without repelling them. There's a saying, I think, that goes something like, you got to hope the world meets Christ before he meets Christians. That is often the case. So we're going to start our conversation today, bringing in two great people to have this conversation with, where we're going to be talking about pop culture and the church and how those two meet, and what kind of conversations we should be having with our leadership and our congregation, our brothers and sisters, right? So first, I'm going to bring in Elder Cheryl Frith Brown. She joins us from New Community Baptist Church in Hammond. She's got an extensive background in dance and performance and teaching. And so we're so happy that she's here, because a lot of, those kinds of things show up in the church, and it's a way for pop culture to be introduced, for better or for worse, depending on your position. And we're going to ask you guys what you think about that later as well. We're also bringing in Reverend Bernard Jakes. He is the senior pastor at West Point Baptist Church, historic West Point Baptist Church with a long history of community activity, and also a place that's attracting a lot of young people. And so we're going to talk to him about where those two roads intersect. Welcome, Reverend Jakes. Hello, how are you guys?
Good. How are you, Tyra?
So here's the question. Where does the intersection, well, let's talk about the positives of the intersection of pop culture and the pulpit. Reverend Jakes, we'll start with you first.
Well, the intersectionality is that as generations die off, generations come in. So one of the things that's very important is to remember how important it is to understand that the previous generation is not like the succeeding generation, and we must and I hope I'm getting to your question. We must look at the methodology of what we're doing, because what worked for boomers doesn't necessarily work for Gen X, and what works for Gen X doesn't necessarily work for millennials, and what works for millennials doesn't necessarily work for Gen Zs. And so we have to look at the methodology of how we're doing church in order to create the intersectionality. Now, at West Point, personally, we are a 5-generation church, and so what's been very important under my pastorate is to make sure that all generations are able to shake hands with one another. And so that's the long and short of it.
But that said, with so many different, and each of those generations really do have specific ways that they want to learn, specific ways that they are entertained, different attention spans for different topics. I wonder how you maintain, that's a lot of balls to juggle. And while you want to give each group the attention that they need, at some point they've all got to be in that space together at the same time. Sure.
And that's and a lot of that, Tyra, in my 23 years of pastoral experience, really rest on not just the shoulders of the pastor, but also the ability for the pastor to be able to empower the laity to understand the importance of creating the synergy that needs to happen with all generations, and also to understand that I have a member, God bless her heart, Mother Hawkins. I call her name whenever I can. Mother Hawkins is 102 years old, and Mother Hawkins at 102 during the pandemic, she logs on to Facebook Live quicker than some of the folks that are 22 because someone took time to sit there and show her the process and did not rush her through it, but showed it to her. And that's what's important, is being able to sit with each generation and get them to understand the importance of working together. And when that happens, I say this not braggadociously, but it's successful because especially when you're dealing with your seniors, many of our seniors, they're getting older. They have more time behind them than they do ahead of them. And so, when you feel like you have more time behind you than you do ahead, and it seems like the church, everything is just moving very rapidly, the place where you're going to come and want it to remain the same is the church, because that's where you're comfortable. And so someone has to be able to hold their hand and walk them through it for as long as it may take. And usually you don't get too much feedback, because it's not about the technology and the things of that nature. It's just being able to work with them, to love on them, and to share with them the importance of why you're doing what you do. The rest of those generations, they're easy. They're pretty easy.
Elder Cheryl, what have you found? Before we get started, I'm going to ask you to turn your camera or scooch over just a little bit. So
a little bit.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, wonder. Up.
Can you get it?
It was so close.
There it is.
Yeah.
I'm holding it. Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
Oh, but yeah, we can only see one of you've got great frames. We want to see both sides of them.
Can you see it?
That's good.
Okay.
We'll take that. You have a particular engagement with pop culture as someone who deals with music and dance frequently, and as it applies to the church and worship there in that way. Have you been challenged with some of the changes in the way people express themselves physically?
Yes. And that would go for the younger ones to the older ones. Now we're in a different dispensation of time. The music that is coming forth, the worship music that is tapping into the anointing and the Holy Spirit, it brings forth more because we're up against principalities. And from my standpoint of view, I have to teach the Bible first before we even get there. And a lot of the children want to just hip hop and express themselves in that manner. It's not a problem with the hip hop, but it's putting it in its place. It's putting it in its place where it can mean something. It can help break yokes and destroy burdens in our churches, because everyone likes to dance to the beat. But when it comes down to breaking the yokes and making a difference in the community as well as in the church, it takes a lot. And that's Bible.
So, yes. As young people are coming in, a way to engage them is music and dance. Have you found, what's the reaction that you're receiving from young people who have heard and really enjoy some of the faith-based hip hop and have been drawn to a congregation through that music, but maybe generally unchurched, so to speak, as all folks.
They come in raw. Some of them come in raw. And some of them have been in the church and still have missed it. So basically, my teaching is perpetual, and it's meeting them where they're at. And it's not to turn them off. You can't do that, or you can't do it. We come together so we can talk about it and see where we can come together to really put it where it can really become in that worshipful mode and not look like it's street. Because too much street has entered the building. And we've gotten away from the holy of holies, and we've got to put it back into its perspective, because the devil has come into the church. It has come into the church, and worship has always been for the church, but the devil has entered and taken it out and perverted it.
So, Pastor Jakes, let me along the lines of that conversation, what is the bridge to be built then? Because we are drawing people in of all ages, really. There's a lot of adults that the first kind of word they've heard is in a hip hop song. And that's why that's so popular. But what's the bridge that can be built to bring those people in, and when we meet them at that over the river, to keep them going to the other side if they're hesitant or they are not interested, ready, or maybe willing to morph what they've heard in street music, so to say, into worship?
The bridge that I think, Tyra, needs to happen is we've and when I say we, I don't want to make a sweeping generalization,
Mm-hmm.
but what's important is that we tone down our language. See, church language is an interesting language,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a language that really can turn people away because they may not understand that language. And so that's number one. We turn down the church language. The second thing I believe is important is that, and again, this is off of 23 years of pastoral experience and being a practicing Christian since I was 5. Now, let me put an asterisk there. I say practicing Christian because I haven't arrived yet.
Amen.
Okay. And so I think the other thing that happens to make the bridge, to cross over the bridge, is that it's important that we come off of our moral high horses, and we don't have to adjust our beliefs in order to meet people where they are. So as Elder said, meeting people where they are is so crucial and is so very important. When you take a look at the Gospels and you read the stories about Jesus met people where they were, and in meeting them where they were, after he met them where they were, then he supplied the need for them to have what they needed. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we get it backwards. There's this belief that those who are outside the church need to acquiesce to what we do, when it's just like, you know what? Sometimes we need to scale it down and remember from whence we came. That at one time we were on the other side of that bridge, right? And something had to happen to pull us to the other side of that bridge. And it may take a Kanye West doing a gospel song. It may take, because his gospel album was a banger. It was when Snoop did his gospel album, it was a banger. So if it takes that to help believers to say, okay, they got their attention, then now what we do is we go in with, so you see how I'm dressed now. I don't dress like this all the time because, sometimes I like to put on a suit and a tie and things of that nature. But I'm not going to a Kanye concert with a suit and a tie on and the Bible in my hand. Yeah. Not about to happen. I give you a short story if you don't mind, if I have.
Sure, no, please do.
So West Point, 3566 South Cottage Grove, shameless plug. We used to the Madden Wells housing development was behind us. Before they tore it down because we thought we were going to get the Olympics. That's a short story, too long to tell. But I would go behind the church because many of our brothers were back there hanging and banging. So, I go back there, I'm talking to him. And I was talking to the guy who ran the neighborhood. I was like, look, bro, I just need to know, tell me what we can do to help our community. I'm not going back there telling you what we want to do because I need to exegete the community to find out what it is that you need. And so he was just like, man, Rev, okay, look, this is what I need you to do. He said, man, I need y'all to, come up with some programs or something to get these kids out here so they don't end up like I end up. Now, as he and I are conversing, as this dude standing next to him who's just kind of looking, he's sizing me up and I get it. But as he's sizing me up, he was sitting there, you know, with his. He was really trying to annoy me, but he had his tops and he had his weed and whatever. But I could tell he was young. Well, he really was annoying me, so I stopped and I looked at him. I said, "Bruh, if you're gonna roll that joint, this is what I need you to do. I need you to lick the top." Put that top paper together, take that weed, put it in there, lick it again, roll it. I said, then lick the tips on the end. And he just kind of looked at me and I was just like, I said, bro, don't let the REV fool you. He's been one of our greatest disciples of Christ ever since because you met him where he is. And so I share that story to say that's what I feel needs to happen. You know, we don't have to belittle who we are as people of the way or as practicing Christians in order to meet folks. Sometimes folks just need to know that you just kind of keep it real,
right?
Understand where they come from.
Yeah, and you were careful not to offend him.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
we lose. I think we. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't
want
to.
No, go ahead. I think you're about to say what I was about to say.
I think we lose a lot of people to offense, and particularly young people. I'll tell a story of my own. I remember being a young person, Elder Cheryl, who wanted to dance, wanted to do liturgical dance. I was shapely and was told, I don't know if you want to draw that kind of attention to yourself. Right. Wow. And I've been good. I'm good. But it does give you that moment of shame. It creates shame, you know? And I had to grow out of that.
Yeah.
But still, even at 40, how many have 40, 10 almost at this point? I still, and I'm able to deal with it much, I'm more equipped, better equipped in the Holy Spirit to deal with it now. But, you know, you get an older mother who will come, do you need a sweater? No, I'm not cold. Thank you. Can I get you something for your legs? No, I'm good. I appreciate it. Bless you. Thank you. We lose people that way. There's young men who come to the church who, you know, are off the street, are the people from the alley, from behind the building, as you talked about, Reverend. And, you know, there's men who are looking at them a particular way, who are speaking to them because they know the actions to do. They know physically what to do when someone new comes in, but the spirit of it isn't there. And that turns people off.
Yes.
What is the messaging to people of the church who are doing the things that they know to do, but the spirit may not, the right spirit may not be there?
Get them, Elder.
Well, I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of because we'll go right there with the mothers of the church. They didn't handle it correctly. It's a way you do things, and you do it decent and in order. Because as you said, once you were in that place and someone directed you to the right place, and we get so spiritual, we get so up in the clouds, and we figure that we can do it because we can do it, but it's wrong. That's a turnoff. I've been turned off in church. I've been in church all my life, but I've seen some things like heaven wasn't even happy about it. And it's a direct offense. And it takes you to a place where you just stop. What you came there, you don't want to deal with it anymore. But I've had people to talk with me, and I've sat around people that had wisdom that would able to bring me back where I need to be. And sometimes it has to happen. Someone is there to shelter you, to put you back on the right track. But I've seen so much of that where it becomes a turnoff. Young folks said, I'm just tired of that. I'm tired of sister such and such. She's getting on my nerves. It's how you handle it, because we're trying to draw them, not to detract them away from what you say you have.
If we tell people come as you are.
Exactly.
Kind of.
With an asterisk.
Exactly.
Right.
With an asterisk.
But it can hurt. It can be so damaging. It can be so damaging, and it will take them out of where God has sent them. And we have to be very careful when we have these Nubians coming in, because they see the way that we perform. They see the way we walk. They see the way we talk. But then again, they see how you respond to them. in such a negative way. And it's not the way that Christ would want you to be. You have to be so very gentle with this generation. And because I got past my hurts, I did, because I was hurt. Church hurt.
Everybody's been.
Church hurt. But someone prayed for me to get me back on track. And we're losing that next generation, and the blood is going to be on our hand. We as the church, the body of Christ, must get right before anyone, God sends anyone in to be under that, so they won't be damaged.
Mm-hmm. Pastor Jakes?
Yes.
What do you say to that?
Well, if we're talking about person's clothing, yes, it has evolved over time. Now, I grew up in, I spent some years in the South. So I do have some of that deep-seated, this is how you dress when you come to church in me. And I do have colleagues that still believe that. Yeah. I had a discussion with a colleague, and he is deaf on the sisters wearing dresses below their knees, and he was because he had come to preach for me, and he said, "Man, you know, it was coming in. It was summertime. They had on what do you call it, sundresses, things of that nature. They were appropriately dressed." And so in the conversation, I had to remind him. I said, "Well, since you're talking about ladies," I said, "Do understand? I've met a whole lot of ladies with long dresses and short morals.
Well,
don't sit there and make it seem like the clothing is what determines the level of morality. Mm-hmm. Likewise, I've seen men in three-piece suits, pastors, who are the biggest whores that could ever be. So you cannot determine who someone is based upon how they're dressed. Now, as it relates to coming into the worship center, the local church, whatever you call it, at some point, times change. If you've seen the times change, there was a time people loved to get dressed up to come to church,
right?
But the times have changed because in America, corporate America, there was this shift where you had to get dressed every single day, and the only time you didn't wear a suit or a shirt, a tie, or a business suit for ladies is on Saturday and Sunday. So then you start seeing the shift on Sundays, where persons would come in and they would have on maybe a blazer and some jeans, or sisters may be a little bit more casual because they had to get dressed up all week. And so what's important is also to look at the times. The struggle with the local church is that the local church it can get caught in a time warp. It's like we're in a time capsule, and are so afraid to move forward or to pivot with the times in which we live, and then turn around and want to throw it on the Bible. Mm-hmm. And say, well, the Bible said, and at the end of the day, it's like, and I don't say this begrudgingly or to be of an insult, but most people that say what the Bible say don't understand what it means. And so because they don't understand what it means and are quick to articulate what it says, it ends up doing more damage to persons who come in. And it's just like, give them a minute, because assimilation is a powerful thing. If you go somewhere long enough, Tyra, and you see how the culture of the people, you'll start changing your culture without people having to say anything. That's about right. It, because people tend to assimilate, and if the assimilation is not happening fast enough, then it's important to be careful enough to say, okay, this is a young man who he's wearing the skinny jeans, and his midsection is showing a little bit too much. All right, so I'm not going to send Deacon over there to talk to him, because Deacon is going to talk to him like, you ain't got no business wearing them jeans. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send somebody that's his peer to be like, hey, bro, I understand that you that's what you like to wear, but can you wear them just a little bit larger? Talk to him, in that way that is respectful. And sometimes you just have to gauge that. So.
Mm-hmm.
That was a long answer to a short question.
No, it's a long conversation, and that speaks to the benefit of having multi generations
exactly
in a congregation, so that person exists to go talk to the young man coming in or to the young woman coming in. I think also a lot of the casual nature that we see is in the non-denominational phenomenon. So where we're watching worship groups online or on TV, however you take music in, it's casual. And so that has translated to all the churches. Is the Baptist church resistant to the not? What would you say?
No, you go ahead, Elder.
It's a little stern. It's a little stricter. But for the non-denominational churches, it's becoming a little bit more lax. So therefore, you have the Baptist kid looking over at the non-denominational kid, where they're wearing jeans and tie-dyed shirts and things, and they're worshiping the Baptist side with their little tops on and their little dresses on, and it causes a problem. Because that child's saying, well, why can't we do that? Because we're always looking on the other side of the fence. Why can't we do that? And my worship, I don't believe my worship will change because I put that on. Because what's in me, it's in me. And I know how that goes. But it starts from the hierarchy of that denomination and the rules, and they make the rest. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Because I come from a Methodist background. And they were pretty tight with theirs. I remember when they came forth in allowing us to wear pants. It was a discussion. And some of the mothers would turn their head like in The Exorcist when one walked in with those pants on. They didn't get over there. Some of them died with that look on their face, like, I don't like the way things are happening here. I don't know, Jesus. This don't look like you no more. I don't know. And, it makes them afraid. Because from what we grew up on and what they grew up on, it makes them afraid. It feels like they're losing their religious or their spiritual value. But in essence, it really isn't. It's taking those younger ones to another level, and that they don't have to take so long to get to be 40 or 50 to find out who Jesus really is. They're tapping in now. And we cannot be a hindering spirit to the move of God. If he told them to come in with some holes in the pants and they still worshiping and lifting up holy hands, God is pleased. We're not here to please man. We're here to please God. We've been sent to worship him, not man. And so we get that type of mindset from what was to now what is. It's transitioning. It does not transition my faith, I believe, but it transitioned worship experience coming into a church on a Sunday morning totally different as to be in those little white dresses and those little Cinderella socks with the little bow in our hair and the ruffled socks on. It's different, but God is still the same.
The statistics show that more and more often people identify themselves as spiritual, no particular faith tradition, no specific domination, spiritual, and they are attending church services or synagogue or temple less and less, and seeking ways to worship and study outside of traditional religion. Why do you think that is? Anyone can answer. Reverend Jakes?
Well, I believe is because, and this is based on a couple of things. So first one is based on Pew Research. Pew Research has been studying this for the past decade. And so I'll attach what Pew Research has along with my pastoral experience. That much of it is due to the inability to understand if there is one God. Yeah. So if there is one God, then why does Muslims call him Allah? Why do we call him God? And then you go from that, and then why does Jewish brothers and sisters refer to him as Jehovah. So that's one thing. The other thing is that when you take a look at the Catholic Church is one church. It is one church, period. When you look at the Protestant church, which is what we are, you have the Protestant church, and the Protestant church then breaks down into denominations. Mm-hmm. And where many are misinformed, and I'm not going to talk about our non-melanated brothers and sisters, but I'll talk about our melanated brothers and sisters. Where many are misinformed, or is because there's not been an accurate teaching across the boards. For some, they do it, but for many, they don't understand that Protestant obviously came out of the root word of protest against the Catholic Church, because of some of the theological things that happened. But also the different denominations has nothing to do with one's belief in God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. The Catholic Church, the Protestant Church believes in God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Denominations come about because of polity, Polity, which is nothing more than the politics of that denomination. Right. And so, as Elder said, she had come out of the Methodist Church. Well, it's the Methodist Church. Well, you have Methodists, you have Free Methodists, you have United Methodists, you have African American, you have AMEs, you have AMEs. So right. You have all of those that have different politics.
That's right.
Well, in the Baptist Church, well, there's not one Baptist church. You have the Free Baptist, you have the Anabaptist, you have the Anglican Baptist, you have, and then boil that down to the Black church. You have National Baptist, you have Progressive National Baptist, you have Progressive National Baptist Church of America.
Right. And
so persons tend to think that everybody is worshiping a different God, which really is about politics. And so the more we educate people that this is not about, some churches are congregational. With the Baptist church, many Baptist churches are congregational, meaning they select their pastor. If it's something that has to happen, they take a vote. Unlike the Methodist Church, and other some denominations, and I'm more familiar with United Methodist because both seminaries I graduated from were affiliated with United Methodist Church. They have appointments. AMEs have appointments. So you go to general conference, and the pastor, the bishop appoints you to your church. So the congregation can have their say so, the board of steward can have their say so, but it is the bishop that appoints you to that church. And so when persons understand the polity and the makeup, that helps with one level of, okay, I'm going to lean more towards the spirituality piece. The other piece is, and Tyra, I'm glad you brought this up. The other piece is, I need, for those that are listening, could you please do me a favor? And can we please stop bashing each other on social media as it relates to the church? Because people read those things. The church is not doing this. Now you've been going to church and been in church all your life and things of that nature. And so it's where persons are trying to get likes and things of that nature. Well, I don't think they're understanding that someone who may be weak on their journey, or maybe at the threshold of crossing over to give their life to Christ, to commit themselves to Christ and be a part of a local church, now reads all of these things that you all are saying is wrong with the church. And then, and be like, you know what, listen, when I retire, I wouldn't want to go to church. Some of this stuff. So that's where and then you get into that piece to say, my spirituality, I can worship God, follow Jesus, and be led by the Holy Spirit without going to a local church. Now, it is not biblically sound because it says, fail not to assemble yourself, but at least there's an understanding why. And we have to hold ourselves accountable for much.
That's right.
To the point of social media and the way it's kind of taken over, we used to be able to say young people's lives, but it's really, there is no age limit. If you're on, you are subject to it.
Right.
So to that point, there are people who are promoting their churches or their ministries or their music or whatever it might be. And the intention is to get likes. It is to draw people to engagement. And that creates the conversations that you were talking about. But what is or is there even a responsibility for the people that are posting? So where there was a big controversy maybe a few years ago about, what is her name? Megan Good,
Mm-hmm.
who was recently married, beautiful young actress, married the author. What's his name?
Dude.
Bruh.
Bruh.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Right.
So she passed the oh boy. They were married, and he is a popular Christian figure.
Mm-hmm.
And he got a lot of kickback because she dressed, she wore, closely cut clothing. She's shapely. She would invite him to a red carpet, as she should. It's her husband, and we can't say, bring everybody into the church, but the people in the church can't go outside the church and go do those things. But they took a lot of heat for the way she dressed, and it hurt her. We had her on a show I produced. It hurt her deeply. She talked about, but then she decided he approves of me. She's got a relationship with God. God approves of me. I can't worry about the rest of the people. So the question is there a responsibility? Should people inside the church put out an image that matches up with what we've decided is appropriate? Devon Franklin. Thank you, Reggie.
Well, in some churches, that's already been done.
Right.
And that's what we're fighting now. The foundation been set. And that's the problem. That's where we're at now. Because we can go here, even with the hair coloring. We've got all types of multicolors in church now. Look like the Rainbow Coalition. And the mothers of the church look, and I'm starting to look. But again, I have to step back to see what God is saying to this person, or is he speaking, or is it the flesh that's speaking? Because you see one with purple hair, you'll see one with pink hair, you'll see them with all shades of the rainbow. And it's very interesting. And then sometimes I see them in leadership positions, and it's setting the tone for the next generation. Not to say that person is not saved, but then some of that savedness ought to save them from looking like the world.
But couldn't it just be hair? It's just what the popular hairstyle is?
Because I can even go back at the time when my mom was back in the 60s. Our Black women, we always dealt with our hair. We always dealt with the hair. Back in the day when Mahalia Jackson, she had those big old wigs. Big wigs. My mom had those wigs that, when they take them off, they just stay in place.
Propped up on the dresser. No,
exactly.
No head, not just
exactly. But the thing is, at this time and juncture in life, can we take it too far? Can we take it too far? Is it safe to go there, or how far do we go with it? Pandora's out of the box now. So how far do we take it? And how does that influence or affect the next generation that's looking? So, it's a lot to the culture. It's a lot to the culture. And it's a lot of being exposed to what's on the internet. And then they bring the world inside because they see Mary Jo Blige or whomever these people are with these types of hairdos, and they bring them into the church, and it deflects who they really are. And people already size them up as, that type of person, or this or the other. So I'm just trying to deal with that look itself, going into the next phase of church. Because when the pandemic hit, those colors were starting to filter in. And now we've got people back in church, and boy, do we see some colors. So I'm just saying.
So
the world is a colorful place.
It sure is.
Can I chime in on this
Sure.
on this piece? I want to say a couple of things. That one, I'll be glad when we get to a place that the church stop policing women's hair.
Okay.
For some odd reason, we just keep policing Black women, and I'm like, why do we keep doing that? And that's not to you, Elder. It's it's just kind of we just keep policing them in all aspect with Black women. Everybody wants to police Black women's hair. It's a shame that a law had to be put in place that a company cannot fire you because of your hair. Like you said, it's hair. It's like whether if it's purple, if it's yellow, if it's green. Because I feel this way: if we're going to police Black women about their purple hair, their yellow hair, their green hair, then we better start policing these old deacons that wear that Beijing in their hair, trying to tear all that green hair and make it black. Now, let's be fair across the board, because that is color.
God has not called you to Sharpie your.
That's right. You sitting there knowing that you got a hair full of gray hair, and you take and put all that. I know that the proper name is not Beijing, but that's the street name for it, is Beijing. To put all that Beijing on there to try to make it look like you 30, 40 years younger. Well, just because it's Black, it's still color. It's still color. And so, I think that the church, the local church has unfortunately, and this has just always been, and just because it's always been doesn't make it right.
That's right.
That it's always wanted to police people, and it's like, at some point, yes, it is our job to hold one another accountable. But before we hold one another accountable, we need to hold ourselves accountable. And so if I believe that, and I had to tell one of my sisters this long time ago, she didn't like it. But it was the truth. I had to tell her when she was policing one of our young ladies. She was a young lady. She was wearing what young ladies wear. And finally, we're going back and forth. I said, "Are you just mad because you can't wear it anymore?" What is it? Sometimes we got to remember, press pause for a moment and remember what we used to do when we were that age, or even if we didn't do it to that extent, we did something. There, by the grace of God, go I. It has nothing to do with salvation. The color of one's hair, and things of that day has nothing to do with salvation. And again, it goes back to policing. We police women's bodies. We tell them what they better not do. Now, we ain't told these men what they better not do. We ain't told them that, but we tell women what they better not do. And so, I just think that the church sometimes can be in people's business a little bit too much and start crafting these rules. Again, going back to scripture, they pull scriptures out, which is called proof texting, and they'll take the text and make the text say what is really not in order to solidify their argument, when really that's not what the text says. Some stuff the Lord don't care nothing about. You care about it. The Lord don't care nothing about that. So I just want to throw that in there. And then lastly, when we talk about dressing up and things of that nature, the is over the past 18 months, I would be willing to share that folks was logging on to church in their underwear, in their night clothes, in some shorts. When I log on Sunday mornings and we was doing virtual, sometimes I have on a t-shirt. Sometime but I would have on some shorts and some flip-flops, and because you're at home and it's okay. So if you can do that there and your worship still be real, then why is it now that you go to the building? Yeah, you make some adjustments for being outside, and some adjustments, based upon what you want to be, how you want to represent yourself. But if pandemic has not showed us anything else, it has shown us that a lot of what we do was stupid.
Thank you. Exactly.
It was stupid. And we need to pivot. And if we don't pivot, those churches that pivot will make it. Those that don't will be museums in the next 5 to 7 years.
You got that right. That's so true. if through this pandemic, and I look around, some churches have not even gone back in because of the fact, not because of the pandemic, it's because of the fact it wasn't functioning in the first place. It just didn't fit the time. It just didn't work.
Right.
And some of them already have become museums.
Yep.
And it's a sad state of affairs. And some of the people are not going to go back into the building.
That's right. That's right. I don't want to go back.
Now.
Yeah, we're back
Recycled
twice a month, but I don't want to go. Listen, I'm cool with being right here every Sunday doing a 1 hour worship. And at 11:05, I'm at Dunkin' Donuts getting my sandwich and my coffee. And at 11:45, I'm smoking my cigar in my garage. You know, they ain't got to get dressed up, go all the way down there to West Point Baptist Church for a 1 hour service, come home, be uber tired, and have to take off all of my holy garments,
all right,
and then do all of that. No, I'm so
I'm good.
Pivot, I'm telling you,
it's good.
Folks ain't coming back as much as folks think they are.
That's right. They're not coming back. They found another way of worshiping.
That's right. And it works.
And it works.
Mm-hmm.
As we continue this conversation, I want to invite viewers to take note of the phone number that you see tracking across the bottom there. We want you to join the conversation and share your thoughts and get some feedback and give some feedback. As we close this part of the conversation with folks, you know, trying to decide if they're going back, are they going back? What things can the church proper do? What adjustments need to get? If there's three things that the church itself needs to do, local churches, and I like, as you put it, Reverend Jakes, what do they need to take into consideration?
You want to handle that, Elder? First,
stop begging so much. Stop having so many anniversaries. You know, and it has nothing to do with God. I mean, Jesus didn't have his anniversaries. Why they have to have week-long and month-long anniversaries for a man? Just saying.
I'm with you. Three things. I believe the local church should examine, as we're in the midst of this pandemic, is one, examine what do a comparison analysis on what you were doing pre-pandemic and what you will do post-pandemic, because at some point we're going to come out of this, and determine whether or not what you were doing is worth carrying into post-pandemic. That's the first thing. Secondly, it's being able to read. Not one of the things about the message should never change. The message. So I don't tell preachers what to preach and things of that nature, but the music, the ministry, and the message should all be looked at, and the music doesn't have to change. You know, we West Point obviously is we are our history is rooted in hymns, anthems, gospel. Albertina was our lifelong member. That's my sweetie pie. But we still are able to do, I call it top 40s, old school, pull off new school. It all depends. But you still got to take a look at the music. As far as ministry is concerned, local church must look at how they now do ministry, because pandemic forced everybody outside the walls of the church. And so now what does that mean when you look at ministry outside the walls of the church? To Elder's point, why is an usher anniversary really that important now? Is a month-long church anniversary or pastoral anniversary really that important now? What's really important to that community, so that you can serve that community? So as an asterisk, I have a rule of thumb when I'm training young preachers and young pastors. I tell them a church must justify its existence in the community. If everyone else can justify why they're in that community, you should justify why you're there. And if you can't justify why you're there, the community ought to kick you out. So we have to look at how we do ministry post-pandemic. The third thing that is very important is the message. One of the things, Tyra and Elder, I've learned during this pandemic is that I don't have to preach a 40-minute sermon. That I really can scale it down to 17 to 20 minutes because I only have 1 hour. That's all I've given myself is 1 hour. And so, scaling it down to make sure that you're saying what the Lord wants you to say, but not massaging your own ego by saying it.
Right.
Yeah. So I think those are the things that I believe the local church needs to examine. And if I had to have a fourth one, because you only asked for three and I'm obedient.
No, there's grace. What do you got?
The fourth one I would suggest that the church, if they have not done so, the local church would engage millennials and Gen Zs to work on their social platforms. I don't care. I'll be 51 in a couple of weeks. When we had to pivot and we did virtual in church, but when I had to do that to my home, I went and got my baby brother. I was like, bro, I need to know. He was like, okay, you need a podcast mic. You need this, that, and the other. Okay. He was like, dude, just go on Amazon, order what you need to order, set it up, and let's go. And that next Sunday, because we hadn't been in the building since the third Sunday in March of last year, Sunday, we had reached out to all the membership. We had gone live. We were on Zoom to get to those members that didn't know how to do Facebook Live and things of that nature, all because I had a Gen Z.
That's right.
Who said, this is what you need to do. And even moving forward, we're now going to hire a company to come in, take a look at our visuals and say, okay, what do we need? What do we need so that persons can continue to be engaged, that we create small group ministries virtually? So those are the things. That would be the fourth one.
Yeah, because that part isn't going away. What the benefit of church via social media and church via Zoom is that you're able to reach people outside of the immediate physical.
That's correct.
Area. So whatever worshiper you've caught their interest in Alabama somewhere will never be in your building.
Yeah, we have since pandemic started, since we started doing 100% virtual, not in context, we have had 68 persons internationally connect with our ministry, which did not happen before. So these persons are engaged with us. We engage with them, and we've had over 190 from across the continental U.S. to engage with our ministry. So much so that I had to, when I went out to Arizona, and I met a couple of them. We're gonna. That's the other thing we're doing next year is going to be a few of us that's going to go to our virtual members, go to their city, and we're going to meet with them. We're going to have a worship service there and things of that nature. So we've got to get innovative in how we do things, if your money can afford it. Because I recognize that everyone's congregation is not able to afford that. And I'm not saying West Point is able to afford it, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just say that. I'm not saying that because those things are funded out of my pocket. But at the end of the day, it's again becoming innovative enough to say, you know what, we need to do something different. Let's dare to do something different. And how do we do that? And if a pastor or an assistant to the pastor or leaders don't know how to do that, don't be afraid to ask.
Elder
Tyra Martin look like she'll help you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I
said Tyra Martin look like she'll help you.
Oh, I'll always help. I can't wait to help. Let me ask you both this. As you talked about the things that we've all kind of decided, I don't really need that, and this is what I do need. One of the things that the pandemic has taught us is that political issues, social activism are what is the order of the day kind of right now. Where should the church be? I know traditionally what people would consider as the Black church is a center of those kinds of things. But now, as there are different demographics in all churches, there's very few churches that are still totally one demo. How do you have those conversations in church? Because a lot of churches struggle with that.
Yeah.
during the George Floyd, the time then that was what everyone was saying. A lot of churches struggle with that. They struggle with the issues with addressing police brutality. They struggle with, where people fall on one side or the other with former President Trump. How can those things be addressed within the congregation, or should they be?
Yeah, I believe that should be. It should be. Because when we look back in time when Dr. King started out, it was in the church. And I know times are different, but even so that they're different, we still have the same problem that was going on and we were polarized with. The church is our basis. And if we lose our basis, which is the church, our foundation, which is our right to speak on these types of issues, we're in a situation. And we should have counseling with that. We should have conferences regarding this, teaching a young man what to do and what not to do when police up upon them and pull them over. All these things, we have to be engaged in this because it's not going away. And from what I'm looking at, it's getting worse. We're losing too many of our young people on police brutality unnecessarily, and they're so bodaciously, they kill them right in front of us. So we have to have that church to be that sounding board where we can come together to communicate with our youth. And if we don't, we'll lose that generation.
And in the form of ministry to the congregants, that is important because they're there to get equipped to leave there.
That's correct.
Yeah, one of the things that we practice at West Point is that one of the tenets of our mission is that we are a socially conscious, social responsibility, social accountability congregation. That there's prophetic preaching that takes place in the pulpit. It's not every Sunday, but it's going off of one theologian said that when you are a preacher, you should have the Bible in one hand and a newspaper in the other. And it's being able to address societal ills, but also give hope about how these societal ills can be overcome and empowering the people to go out and do the work. I believe, Tyra, and if I'm wrong, correct me. I believe that the undergirding of what you're getting at is that there are so many who are out in the streets that are practicing, social justice through activism that don't want to fool with the church because they feel like the church is not doing its part. And for some, I would say yes. The other parts, I'd be like, that's not necessarily true. Because one thing is for certain, you take away the Black church, you take away its main power source. Black community's main power source.
That's right.
We talk about the civil rights movement in the King era, but it goes long before that. The insurgents of Nat Turner. Nat Turner,
that's right,
was a Baptist preacher. Harriet Tubman was a Baptist preacher. You go back to Phyllis Wheatley and go back to many of our brothers and sisters that were brought over on through the Atlantic slave trade, the Mid-Atlantic slave trade, and when they come over here, many of them were already priests and priestess. So it runs deep into who we are. It's just what happens is that sometimes, and I agree with you, Elder, there's so much training that need to take place, especially among Black clergy, because they don't know how to be prophetic, but also be empowering while being prophetic. When you take a look at the Holy Writ, the Bible, every section of the Bible was written doing some type of oppression.
That's right.
Every piece was doing some type of oppression. Jesus, the story of Jesus was written during Roman oppression. So how do you not talk about oppression and not talk about it and deal with it, especially in the context of Black people being oppressed? And this is what the millennials and the Gen Zs are not hearing enough of, but they got to give us a chance if they just come in or we go out there and partner with them to understand that, we are against oppression of any type. We are against oppression of Black people. We're against oppression of poor people. We're against oppression of same gender loving people. Because you can't be against oppression for one and not against oppression for all. That's not social justice. That's social selectiveness. That is not accurate. And so, but also I see that our young people see the Black church as being released from oppression. So, it's kind of like the oppressed have now become the oppressor, that we uphold people in what they're doing against the community, which is not so. So I think that the Black church definitely needs clergy. I'm talking about clergy now. Really needs to examine how to become more prophetic and how to engage in social activism, because what is it that Micah 6:8 says? What does the Lord require of us? That is to do justice,
That's right,
to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. But the first thing is doing justice. And what does that look like? And the church should be leading the way. The synagogues should be leading the way. Mosques should be leading the way on making sure that happens.
Yeah, and the language, the verb there is very clear. Do.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to bring in some more people to the conversation. Do we have folks behind the scenes? Do we have anybody that wants to chit chat? Well, then I'm going to bring in our team, and because we like to round the show out with everybody talking. If Reggie, Daria, and Mark can join us. Hello. Ooh, we look like the Brady Bunch for real.
Hello.
Hi. How you doing?
Put all the bald head men at the bottom. I get it.
Right.
You have been profiled. Yeah.
Right.
Again, great conversation. Very informative. I love the topic. I love the dialogue. It's been really great. I was like, man, I can listen to you guys all day long. It's been a really, really great conversation leading up to some of the topics. Again, it's really concerning inside the church and the body of Christ. Period. One thing I was writing my notes here. The one thing is I always tell my choir, because I am really a person that feels that you need to be free to do ministry. Is what I say. I always say, be free to do ministry. But I always tell them, if what you have on is a distraction, then you're already 50% defeated the purpose. It makes the ministry even harder when they can't get past what you have on to see Jesus. So what I always say is that, yes, we are in this come as you are, and I love it because I'm the last person that want to wear a suit. I grew up. My mom was a PK. My mom's a preacher. My dad was a preacher, and we grew up. Everybody had on suits. At 8 years old, we had on the suit. We went to church with suits on every Sunday. You understand me? And then, like at our church, in the Baptist church, you couldn't go in the pulpit with no pants on. The mother would take a sheet or something, a robe, and wrap it around your pants. That was not happening in the choir rehearsal. I don't care what you do. You was not going up in there in that choir stand with no pants on. So we grew up.
Mark, you remember when Dr. Evans was alive? You couldn't go up in fellowship if you was a woman with no pants on.
Now,
the church.
Oh, absolutely. And it was on the glass. Women are not allowed to wear pants. They would have to. You would have to bring a dress, roll your pants up under your
we grew up with that. You understand? So
wow.
I love the fact that we have involved. I love the fact that people are involved and they understand that it's about the inside. It's not what you have on. But again, I teach my choir, and this is just what I say. My people is that if what you have on, male, and this is what I do also, Pastor Jakes, male and females, I quite tell you, I don't go after listen, women, I don't go after them. Listen, guys, check it out. If what you have on is a distraction, because I understand this, we are all human. This is flesh. And I'm not scripture, y'all know I ain't deep, but we die daily. I'm not, y'all know it's my birthday weekend. Yesterday was my birthday. So the last thing I'm getting ready to do now is be what? Scriptorial and deep. That's not gonna happen. You already know that. So scratch that right there. So that's not gonna happen.
Working on a log in your eye.
Listen.
Right.
Listen, but listen. So everybody has their devices. I don't care how old you are, how young. We all have our devices, and we are attracted to what we are attracted to. It's just that simple. So you can't say, "Well, women, oh, you gotta let no men. You gotta watch what you wear as well." So if what you have on is a distraction, and what I mean by that, it makes it harder for ministry to happen. Then maybe you might want to consider what you have on in order for ministry's sake, because again, it's all about you reaching souls, and it really makes things harder in ministry when you have to like press past that. So it just makes it does. It just really makes things hard. But again, I have no issues with a woman wearing pants. I've never understood it. I've never had issues with that period because my mom was again a bishop. So we grew up in the times like women weren't even allowed in a pulpit, let alone coming in church with pants. They were not allowed in the pulpit. You had to make the announcements, not preachers. You had to make the announcements on the side.
Right.
You go to the altar to make the announcement, nothing like that. You had to go to the side. So, growing up, my mom was like, listen, I'm going to make the announcements here in the pulpit. I'm going to preach here. So I'm all for that. I'm like, go ahead. Women's rights. Go ahead. Women preach on. I love it. But that's just my only thing is that, in this generation that we're in, because some things that we already know, some things are just not appropriate for church. Now, listen, if that's all you have, cool. But sometimes we just want to wear things to make a statement, and to make a statement for a certain reason, we're gonna make that statement, period, because we know we got that Tyra, that body shape. We know what's going on. So listen, we're gonna make that statement. But again, when you know better, you do better. I'm not hung up on clothes. None of that. Haircuts, you can see I don't have an issue with that.
You've been delivered from the haircut trauma.
Mark, I agree with you 100%. There's a couple of things that takes place there. And I agree with you. When I'm in church on Sunday mornings, like we have to go tomorrow. I mean, I got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, as opposed to 8 o'clock and be just down here. One of the things that is always very important to me, and I'm not attempting to be disrespectful, but years ago when we shifted to a glass pulpit, it took a friend of mine to say to me, you need to be careful with that glass pulpit, because when you get excited, you get excited.
And that's what I'm talking about.
And so for me, I wasn't insulted. It said to me, okay, because the fact that, and this is a dear friend of mine, it's a lady, so I'm like, okay, the mere fact that became the focus, then I knew, okay, I need to start wearing my robes. So, I wear my robe, or tomorrow when I wear my in domestic violence sweatshirt, it's long enough, because the mind, to Mark's point, is easily distracted. And, you may like what you like and things of that nature. Same thing with our praise and worship team. When they say, hey, pastor, what are we wearing? Well, I call it bougie casual. So sisters that sing on the praise and worship team, and this is what my praise leader put in place. He said, sisters, I would like for you to have something that at least covers your shoulders, so that way it's not a distraction. Now, if one gets distracted, then that's one thing, but at least you're doing everything you can do to make sure that the focus is not on the wear, but the word. The other thing is, Mark, when you talk about, and Elder, you talked about it earlier, the other part of this, and Tyra, it goes back to that bridge, because the other, we talk about what we are doing to help bring them over, but we also have to understand, and this may just be, my Generation X thing. We're in a society now of anything goes. And there's a sermon I'm working on, and I have not pulled the trigger on preaching yet, talk about the danger of anything goes.
Right.
Anything just cannot go. And that goes with the local church, that goes with education, that goes with any organizations, one would be that danger of anything goes. And we tend to see that, and we have to then kind of wrestle with that and make sure that folks are somewhat not offended. But in it, it's like, I'm sorry, if you don't have rules and you don't have order, you have chaos. Mm-hmm. God created something out of chaos, and nothing should be purposefully chaotic. And so, that whole thing of anything goes is just not it's a dangerous thing. Dangerous. But we just have to learn how to maneuver and pivot. And I'm sure that all of you except Mark are not as old as I am.
Listen, we yet talking about deliverance and something. Okay, so let's just keep it. The folks in here, Pastor Jakes, my brother. God, I can't wait till we get off this show.
Go ahead, Elder.
But can we tap into the modesty of it all? Because even with liturgical dancing and sacred dancing, there must be modesty. Because everybody's not saved coming into church, and we already know that, even to the preacher. So therefore, when I teach the wholesomeness of it. You have to be covered. A lot of our liturgical uniforms, when I first began over some 25, 30 years ago, they were sheer because it only was for the world. It was through dance companies. But when they got the onset of the new movement of dance, they had to switch up on how to garment the individuals as priestly garments. And when you said that regarding you had to put your robe on to protect, to cover yourself because you're on holy ground. And so that's what has to be taught about the preserving yourself and to keep yourself covered. And I do that often with my young girls because I don't want them violated. They may not have been touched, but the eyes that you just gave was, don't get with that.
That's right.
So that's my job.
Right.
As a woman over liturgical, over sacred, modesty. And that's what we're missing in the churches. And it's not to say from because I'm come from the mini skirt generation. I wore my mini skirts and I look pretty good. But it wasn't right. It may not, I was looking good in it, but it was doing something distracting someone else from really being focused on why they came to church for the word. So it's the modesty teaching, and that it comes through the ministries of taking sisters and taking them and talking them through the sanctity of modesty. And it goes in this, it will spill over into the world because everything of the world is not going to work for in the house. And so we have to be very cautious with that when I'm dealing with the dance and the different uniforms that I'm dealing, because they're sacred. He says, be holy because I'm holy. And that's what I stress.
I think well, and there's great points, Elder Cheryl. But I think we go back to what the conversation you guys had earlier. It's, we are here to be teachers and to train. But I do believe sometimes it's our approach and how we do it.
That's it.
Sometimes we can come so deep and so like, and it's so past them, and the kids and young folks be like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
And I mean, and so we have to learn what I found out is really key is I think what we said earlier to Pastor Jakes is like, I come from a place that, listen, guys, not only am I still growing in Christ, I've been where you've been, so I'm gonna talk and speak your language so you can understand that this is how you get to the point where you need to be as we grow together. Sometimes, and this is and I tell us what next showcase you say, because we have a lot of times with artists and especially church musicians. Forgive me, y'all. Be upset with me if you want to. We come to like, they don't know this, they don't know that. We can't tell them this, we can't tell them that. I'm like, well, hold up. First of all, it's your approach. And then second of all, if you come to them like, yo, listen, I've done this, but also I want to know what you're doing so that we can actually learn together. If we learn how to learn, these two generations come together and learn from each other, because the thing about it is this generation, you call them G's, X, or whatever y'all call them. There's too many names for me. They know their generation. They know how to reach their generation. And sometimes we so far disconnected from them. And so we want to come at them the way we was taught. And I understand it's the same thing that when we was young, we was like, why, mama? Why you hit me like this? Man, we said the same thing they're saying about us now. And be like, okay, Dick, I got you, bro, but hold on, that works for you. We said that then, but now we turn around and be the people that we was talking about, like, and they be like, slow down. Can you just speak my language? Not that you have to speak my words, but come to the point, listen to me. Listen to me as I talk, and I'll listen to you so we can learn from each other because they know their generation. So how do we approach them? How do we let them know, yo, check this out. We just said something really key, Elder Shirley. That thing got me. Because listen, I want you to dress a certain way because it's not that you even have to be touched. A way a person look at you can violate you. So how do you approach a young girl so she can understand that how this old man that's whatever is being wrong, just disrespectful? How you teach them that in a way that they understand without saying, listen, you need to put on a long skirt. Y'all know your mama taught you better than that. Maybe her mama didn't teach her.
You're absolutely correct, Mark and Elder. But Mark, something you said that is important, which piggybacks off Elder, is we got to talk to them. We have to talk to them, not talk at
them. Yes,
that is so important. I don't even know. I had no idea who Lizzo was. Yeah. And clearly I could Google Lizzo and I still in Googling had no idea who she was.
You know what now?
And finally I asked my daughter, who is 22 years old, and she sat and she told me who Lizzo was. I said, well, what's people's issue with Lizzo? And then she pulled up pictures and then she started going into this, that, and the other and things of that nature. So I bring that up to say that in my almost 51 years, I'm younger than Mark, that, it's still nothing wrong with talking to
I would not be disrespected on my own show. I would not be disrespected.
There's nothing wrong. It's that shaking hands. We've got to talk to them, because once I talk to you and get you to feel comfortable with me, then I can come to you and correct you.
Right.
And every time I come to you, I'm trying to correct you. Then and that ain't just with young folks. That's with older folks too.
That's right.
That's a Pavlov's response. Yeah.
Because I'm gonna tell you, I have a rule of thumb, Miss Daria. I have a rule of thumb. And my rule of thumb for older people that like to think they can talk to me any type of way, I let them know. I said, let me explain something to you. That I said, honey bumpkin cupcake, let me tell you something. I'll be as old as you, but I'm just as grown as you. So watch how you talk to me. And so if I'm that way and it's getting worse, young people are no different. They need to be talked to, not talked at, not Bible thumped. They're bumping them and thumping them upside the head with the Bible. That's just not going to get it. But if you identify with them and not pass judgment on them, then I can invite you to the table to eat. But when I invite you to the table to eat, once you've eaten, once I've fed you, then I can feed you. That's going to be so very, very important if the church is going to see some sustainability within the next decade.
That's right.
I want to touch on something that you spoke about, Elder Cheryl, and this is to the men. Women are taught from the time we can move around about modesty. Don't lift your, little kids who are still being playful and lifted. Don't do that. Pull your dress, pull your skirt down. Don't sit like that. We get it, churched or unchurched, from the moment we can hear. Who is talking to the men about protecting the women in the church, about being respectful to the women of the church? We can walk around in a tent and do as many side hugs in the lobby as we want, but modesty on our end does not automatically mean that men are not going to be distracted or that men are not going to be tempted in some way.
Can I jump in?
Where you go? Yes.
Shameless plug at West Point. 2019, we instituted a sexual harassment policy for the church for that very reason, because the brothers felt that they could do whatever they want to do under the guise of, oh, I'm just being holy. Okay, well, I tell you what, I got something for you. I got something for you, because that hug where you are side hugging her breast, Negro, I see you.
Okay.
Or that little kiss where you trying to slip a little tongue in them out, and then they become very uncomfortable. I said, okay, I know what to do. We're gonna put a sexual harassment policy in place, and my leaders had to sign it first. They had to sign it first, and it was to let them know that we will not tolerate anyone harassing our women or harassing men. It just will not happen. As far as the protection piece, again, I only pastor one church, so I can't tell you what other churches are doing. But in our protection piece, we have a group of men. It's called the Brothers Against the Domestic Violence, and our job as Brothers Against Domestic Violence, because this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and our responsibility is to make sure that our sisters are protected, not just in the church, but outside the church. That has been something that has been near and dear to me for my entire pastorate. And the reason being is because I taught my son this. I said, you treat a woman the way you want a man to treat your mama. And if you cannot do that, then you don't need to be with her. And so it's our responsibility to do that. So you're absolutely right. It's a great question. Who protects the sisters in the church? It ought to be the men of the church who protect the sisters of the church. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That concludes my TED Talk, as they say.
That's it.
It definitely should be, and just the men with the not the undertone or alternative motives that they may have. They literally need to be the men that are literally protecting the women in the. You didn't like what I was saying?
No, I had to go turn off my heat. It's hot.
I listened to you the whole thing. I didn't turn the heat off in my room. We until God get finished. But we need to be protecting. We definitely should be the ones that are protecting. But we have to be taught and trained to do that, not just when we get to church, but that's also in our upbringing, how we are raised.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think boys get it like girls do.
Yeah. So we were raised. I definitely can speak for all three of us at the bottom. We were raised by a strong woman and a strong man that said you have to respect a lady. I don't hug a lady without asking their permission first. Can I hug you? I ask first, because I was taught you must respect. You just don't go and just hug. I ask, can I? It's in COVID, I don't ask it. I'll be like this. But I got my spray too. I got a spray too. Lady D, do I have spray?
Yes, whole bag of it.
Yes, I will spray you before. Right. I will spray you before I hug you. It's fabric spray. I promise you I will. It kills corona. But anyway, but we were taught that we had to respect the woman, how to respect the woman, and things like that. So this generation now again has to be taught, but we have to be taught by the men that you understand that this is what we need to be teaching our young brothers, and that this is what you need to be doing, and then also teaching our young ladies that the first date that you should have with a man should be with your father. Just because then you also, how a father treats you is how you will want a man outside of when we get into a relationship and to treat you, because your father, especially if he's a 100% daddy, is going to treat his baby girl right. So if that man can't treat you like your daddy treats you, then you don't need to be talking to him. You can't.
It's an expectation for what
a man shouldn't be the first one outside of your father that has spoiled you. Your father should be the first one that spoiled you.
Yeah, but one of the problems that we have with that, though, is that for so many for so many young girls and so many women. They did not have their fathers, whether it was through death early, leaving, not being around, or whatever the case may be, and may not have had that person who could role model for them what that looks like. You know, I remember when my daughter was in high school, it broke my heart that her friends, alleged friends, fell out with her, not because she did anything wrong, but because she was growing up in a 2-parent household. And they got mad at her because her daddy was at home. You know, there's that not having father around psychologically does play a major role in the development of our sisters. And so, you know, as we talk about the local church, that can also be an arm where men could help, but it's got to be men that see women as our sisters and not somebody that could be a side piece.
No, talk.
That is how that happens.
That's it.
You know, and that's when it becomes a little convoluted. You know, that he sees himself more so as daddy, not sugar daddy.
Awesome. Well, guys, it's 2:26, and we normally Dara and Reggie didn't want to have much to say to that. We see, so we thank God that we're getting all the talk. But we again, thank you guys so much for coming on and being a part of our show. I'm going to turn it back over to Tyra and you guys can take it away. But I do want to leave this quote. And I think I saw this online, and this has really blessed me. And I think everybody should just really live by this. It just really says, stop judging people for the same thing you did, but kept it yours as a secret.
My. True.
Stop judging people for Stop judging people for the same thing you did, but kept yours as a secret.
Well, it's like the old saying goes: confession may be good for the soul, but it's bad for the reputation.
That's true.
Wow.
So don't confess, but don't judge others. Don't know.
That's
Back
right.
in you guys' hands. All right. Love you guys. Jay.
Thank you all. Great conversation.
Love you, brother. Reggie, good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, Pastor.
Always. Mark.
And Reggie, Reggie, it's good to see you. Way to start off the new season late, but good to see you as well, Reggie. Let's take care now. All right.
Nobody had to know that.
He said don't judge, but he ain't talking about how he's always late.
I'm always on time. I'm never late.
No, but you're always late when you have a conversation.
I'm not late. I'm not late.
Reggie, he was late today too. So.
I was for 12:30. Then I said, y'all, the show was over. The show is over for y'all. You didn't hear that part? The show is over for y'all.
Bye. You will.
I love y'all.
I need to talk to Daria when we log off on this screen yard.
Yeah, we're gonna pause and then we'll do the chit chat.
Yeah.
All right.
But we let her close her show, which I've been trying to do for the last 2 seconds.
Okay, bye, Mark.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hey, Rich. Elder, it was a pleasure.
My pleasure as well.
Thank you so much to our guests today and for everybody at home watching. I hope what you got from this conversation is an understanding that everybody's been in a position that was uncomfortable, and the secret, you know, however you worship, whatever brought you to the conversation today, is to have a little empathy, right? Have a little compassion. Compassion is contagious. And if it's good to receive it, it is as good, if not better, to give it. So I'll leave us with that. Thank you for joining us and staying with us for this hour and a half. It's a fun conversation. Here comes the credit. The credits are loud. Let me talk. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we're gonna be back in the kitchen. With us from last Thanksgiving, you remember the incredible meal that was prepared by our own Mark Hubbard. We're going to revisit that with the new recipes and a lot of good fun for Thanksgiving. So we'll be looking forward to that. Please join us then, and we'll see you again soon.